Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. This is a webinar with Athlete Soul. Today, we are going to be talking about financial literacy and investing one-on-one with Nicole Middendorf. My name is Miriam Glaze. I'm the founder of Athlete Soul. I'm going to give you a few housekeeping information before we start, and then I'll pass it on to Nicole to introduce yourself and talk to you more about financial literacy. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded. You are going to be able to see the recording of the webinar either on our website following the event, or we will be emailing it to you as well. If you have some question for Nicole, you can ask your question during the webinar, either in the chat box at the bottom of your screen or in the Q&A box as well. I will be tracking all the questions and asking them to Nicole at the end of her presentation. We also have a range of other events that we host every week. So this is part of our series of educational webinars that come every Tuesday in the morning or Thursdays in the morning. So you're welcome to go on our website at athletesoul.space/events to check out all of the future events that we have. Next week will be nutrition, adjusting your nutrition when you are staying at home with Lauren Link, who is the Director of Nutrition at Purdue University. For the moment, I'm going to pass it on to our guest today, Nicole Middendorf, and she will introduce herself. Thank you for joining us, Nicole.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Nicole Middendorf. I'm a financial advisor and a certified divorce financial analyst. My office is in Minnesota, and I never planned on being a financial advisor. I planned on going to law school and being like Madeleine Albright or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I had lived over in Germany in high school and college, and just fell in love with the UN, the United Nations, and just the concept of helping people. And so, but I got married right out of college, and I was a figure skater, so I coached figure skating, and I sold Mary Kay cosmetics, and I started selling Mary Kay to, makeup to all the men at the Morgan Stanley office here in Minnesota, because that's where my husband at the time worked. And they pulled me aside and they said, if you can sell makeup to men, you can do anything. You should be a financial advisor. I'm like, no, that's okay. But roundabout, ended up working for Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance as a recruiter. And after a while, they had me take the tests that I was having people take, and they told me my scores were off the chart and that I should be doing this. So fast forward, here I am. I left Morgan Stanley in 2003 to start my own firm. And so there's 7 of us here, and I run our private client group, which is high net worth business owners, celebrities, and professional athletes. And I'm just all big about education. So these are my 2 kids. They're now 10 and 11. We offer a Kids in Cash program. I'm huge. This is Financial Literacy Month. So we're huge on doing webinars and things related to estate planning, to budgeting, to credit cards, to kids and learning, to you name it, anything related to finances. And that's really my goal, is to take something that can be complex and overwhelming, which is money, and make it really fun and interesting. So what we can go over today is to talk about saving and investing wisely. How can you be smart with your money? And then some of the basics, or the important things really that a lot of people skim over, is having a budget, looking at your credit. Where do you have your money invested? And then for most people, the biggest thing that they're saving money for or accumulating money for is retirement. There's also, we'll touch on college education, because there's some neat things that you can do. We'll look at how do you protect yourself, especially in this kind of environment. And then one of the most common questions I get is, do I need a financial advisor, or how do I find one? So when you first start with investing, you want to look at having a foundation. I use the analogy of, think of it like you're buying a house or you're building a house, and you need to have the foundation set before you can add on the window treatments, or like my daughter is redecorating her room right now. So she painted yesterday, last night she's picking out chandeliers and wall coverings and all of these things. You do all of those extras after you have the basics set up. And so at a minimum, you want to have what I call a rainy day reserve, or more or less, it's one of the reasons I believe that we have the stimulus checks coming out that are happening. we have really seen that most people don't have enough money set aside for emergencies, for that rainy day, which is today, the things that we don't necessarily expect. So job loss, car accident, your medical emergency, your air conditioner breaks, your dishwasher breaks, your car breaks down, whatever it is, what I call things that happen in life, you want to make sure that you have a rainy day reserve for that. Ideal world is that you have, I used to say 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside. Now really it's 6 to 12 months of expenses set aside in that emergency fund. And ideally you want to have that in an insured money market account. Having this money in a checking account or having this money in cash or underneath your mattress or buried in the backyard is not necessarily the best place. Ideally you want to have that in an insured money market account. Then the second thing is you want to pay off any debt. Now there's good debt and there's bad debt. And good debt is an investment in yourself. So that could be starting a business, real estate, student loan debt, things of that nature that you're investing in yourself or there's an asset connected to it. Everything else, that's bad debt. So personal loans, car loans, anything of that nature you want to pay off and you want to get rid of. It's very common for me to see someone that will have a credit card that's charging them 17, 21% interest. And let's say they have a credit card that charges them 17% interest and they have a balance of $2,000. But that person then will also have 10 grand sitting in their checking account earning nothing. That doesn't make any sense because you have money over here earning nothing and you're paying out 17% every single month to that credit card. So pay off your debts, get rid of your debt. Then protection planning. I always tell people you want to answer the what ifs. What if something happens? What if there's a medical emergency? What if there's something with your family? What if there's, like we just had a big fire? What if there's a big fire with where you live? What if you don't want to panic, but you also want to look at how can I protect myself? And then the other thing that you can do of where to start is to max out any retirement plans, which we'll talk about. So there's debt. Pay off any bad debt. And I cannot stress that enough. But you also don't want to pay off and be so focused on paying off debt that, that you never invest in anything. But pay off the high interest credit cards. And one of the tips that I always tell people is if you have credit cards, take that credit card, put it in a glass of water, and put it in your freezer. Because a lot of times, so much of it is really like psychology or how we think about money or our behavior about money. And if you can physically do something that causes you to pause and stop and think about your money, it'll help you change. So if you have credit card debt, take a credit card, put it in the glass of water, put it in the freezer, because what happens? The next time you need to have this feeling to spend the money, you have to take the glass out of the freezer and wait for it to thaw and wait for it to have access to that credit card. So saving for an emergency fund, that's the other key that we talked about. Ideally, you want to have that 6 to 12 months of emergency money set aside. Then here's the big one, knowing your credit. You want to specifically go to annualcreditreport.com. Don't do a Google search or just search for a credit report specific. This is from the Federal Trade Commission. So type in annualcreditreport.com. They will give you a copy. There's 3 credit bureaus and they'll give you a copy from one of them free each a year. So ideally, every 3 to 4 months, 5 months, you want to go in here and request one of your credit reports because it's important. This is what makes up your score. But what's really important is think of it like when you were in school, or if you're in school now, you have your GPA. And that really is showing you from all the classes that you're in, how are you doing? But what makes up your credit score is each of those classes and what you did. And so this is really super important, is to stay on top of your credit and know what your credit score is and know your credit. You then also want to have a budget. We have a budget worksheet. And it's on our website, prosperwell.com. You can go there and you can either utilize the one that's online or you can print it off and use it. I always tell people, print it off, sit down, set a timer for 15 minutes and work on your budget. The easier way to do this is to print this off and just start now with April and write down every single place that you're spending money for the month and track it. Then do May, then do June. Ideally, if you get a good 6 months, it'll give you a good idea of where you're spending your money. And ideally, most of the time for most people, it's just having an awareness factor. I mean, how many times have you ever had it that you get a credit card bill in the mail and you're shocked at how much it is? It's happened to me because, I mean, how many times can you remember what you ate yesterday for breakfast? And so we are so busy. It's figuring out where are you spending money and really being conscious and being aware of where you're spending those dollars. So one, this can help you set and figure out that awareness, but two, it can also help you cut back on some things. The second thing is when you're going through the budget is see what you can cut back. If you have a credit card that's charging you 21% interest, note that, learn that, figure that out, but then pick up the phone and call that credit card company and say, hey, you're charging me 21% interest. Will you lower my rate? What's the worst thing they're going to do is say no. If you have car insurance or like a cell phone plan, pick up the phone, call those, see if you can lower your costs, lower your expenses. And so the biggest thing is you want to look at what do you have coming in? What's your net income? Can you make more of that? Can you get more coming in? And then you want to look at what do you have going out and where can you cut back on those expenses? Then when you're investing, these are all the different types of places that you can have your money. So there's the big circle, which is fixed income or CDs or bonds. These are the safer types of investments. Then we have the 5 boxes, which these are what's called equities or stocks. So this could be a mutual fund, it could be an index, it could be buying the stocks individually. So you have international, you want to invest inside and outside the US. You want to have small cap, and anytime you see cap, that's capital, it's the size of the company. So small cap is historically the best place to have your money, but it's also the riskiest. Small cap and like innovation companies are generally the ones that do well when we come out of a recession or times like today, but that doesn't mean you run and take all of your money and put it there because again, it's the riskiest place to have your dollars. Then you want to have money in mid cap, which is medium-sized companies. And then you want to have large cap growth and large cap value. And the difference between growth and value is think of growth like it's a company that has great growth potential. So you see that, you know, they could have the next big product coming out, or they, you know, lots of people are buying their stuff or whatever they're selling or whatever service they have. Value is it's a great deal. So for some reason, like it can be a great company, but for certain reasons, like right now in the environment that we're in, there's a lot of great companies out there that are at a great value. They're less expensive than you could have bought them 6 months ago. It doesn't mean just because a stock is cheap that it's a great value. You've got to look at what is that company really worth. And then specialty investments, those, it used to be that you buy stocks and you buy bonds. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily happen. It used to be that stocks would go up, bonds would go down. Well, since 2008, that's not really true. So specialty investments is this new category that a lot of people are really focused in. It's having money in things that are not correlated to the stock market. So that means if you have money in stocks and you're hearing the news and the stock market's going down, that you have money in gold or commodities or real estate or another word is alternative investments, things that are not necessarily related to the stock market. And it's important to have money in all of these things, and it's important to have your money diversified. And how much money should you have in each of those depends on a lot of situations. The younger you are, the more risk you can take. In general, when you hear people talk saying if you have a long-term perspective, long-term is 10 years or more. So if you're long-term, you generally can handle more risk. You can handle the ups and downs of the market. But that doesn't mean you want to take all of your money and be extremely aggressive if it's going to keep you up at night and just you as an individual cannot handle a lot of risk. So the other big area is saving for retirement. This is usually where most people are saving or trying to accumulate the most money for. And the two big questions that you want to be able to answer is how much income do you want when you retire? So think about when do you want to retire? That's because that's the second question is what age do you want to retire and how much income do you want? And this is a tough question for a lot of people to answer. But if you can answer those two questions and tell me or any wealth advisor how much you've saved so far, we can tell you, are you on track or are you not on track towards retirement? And if you're not on track, how much money you need to save every single month to get you there. There's all these, once you figure that out, saying, oh, I need to save X number of dollars, there's all these different types of accounts and these different types of places that you can save money for. So there's the laundry list of the 401k, the 403b, the 457, the SEP, the simple, the single 401k, the Roth, the traditional IRA, the IRA rollover. And that's when people are like, whoa, I've just heard enough. And that's where it can be overwhelming because there's so many different types of accounts out there. You want to figure out, one, which makes the most sense for you after you figure out what do you qualify for. So we'll go through some of these. So retirement plans where you work. So if you work at a company, or maybe even if you're self-employed, you may be able to set up a 401k plan, but generally maybe you worked at a company that you have an old 401k plan. But generally at a company, you're gonna have a 401k, a 403b, or a 457 plan. And you always want to invest to the point that you get a match, because whoever you're working for, whatever company or whatever organization, like the NFL, they give a match. You want to take advantage of that because that's free money. And then you also want to max out the retirement plans. And what does that mean? So right now you're able to add $19,500 a year into a 401k plan. And you don't write out a check for that. That comes out of your paycheck. And that money comes out of your paycheck, and when it comes out, you have not paid taxes on those dollars. And so you get a huge tax benefit to put that money in to the 401k plan. So if your income is $40,000 and you put $10,000 into a 401k plan, you're only paying income taxes on $30,000. That's why you're getting the benefit today. And that's what's so great about these. And then depending upon if you are working for a company, there's also stock, ESOP plans, stock options, things like that. But the biggest thing is if you have a 401k plan or that is an option, take advantage of it because usually there's a match. Then in addition to those retirement plans, you're able to do the Roth or the traditional IRA. So in any given year, anyone that's earning income, it doesn't matter what your age is, you're able to do $6,000 a year into the Roth or the traditional IRA. If you're over 50, you're able to do an extra $1,000. So the difference between these two is the traditional IRA is just like your 401k plan. The money goes in pre-tax, which means you get the benefit today. So we'll just use that example of you're making $40,000, you're putting $10,000 into your 401k plan. That money goes in pre-tax. You get a deduction on your taxes. So you aren't paying taxes today. But what happens is fast forward, let's say that $10,000 grows to $500,000 and you retire. If you take money out of your traditional IRA, your 401k plan, pension plans, any of these types of retirement plans, you have to pay income taxes on those dollars later on when you retire. So here's the traditional IRA. It's the opposite of the Roth, which we'll show you the Roth next. And most people choose the Roth IRA. And I'll explain the reason why. But anyone that's earning income under the age of 72, you're able to contribute to that traditional IRA, that's $6,000. You might get a deduction because once you make a lot of money, and for some people it's not a lot of money in the government size, but once you get to a certain point, you're not able to deduct it. And so you want to contribute to this or the Roth IRA while you get those tax advantages. There's two key ages then. If you take money out of a traditional IRA or a 401k plan before you're 59 and a half, you are going to pay state and federal income taxes on that money. But if you're under 59 and a half, you'll pay an additional 10% on those dollars. So sometimes why I encourage people to have liquid money is because you'll go along in life and then you have a hardship or you have some time that things are changing and you don't necessarily have the income that you did before and things are tight. That's why you want to have liquid money, because you do not want to tap into IRAs or 401k plans before you're 59 and a half, because you'll pay that state and federal income taxes plus the 10% penalty. And then the other big thing is you're required at 72, you have to take money out of the traditional IRA. Now here's the Roth. This is the exact opposite. And most people choose the Roth IRA. You're able to put up to $6,000 a year. And in a normal year, you have until tomorrow to contribute. You have until April 15th. But now taxes have been extended. So you have until July 15th to add to the Roth IRA for last year. So if you're getting your stimulus check, or if you have some extra money sitting around and you had income for last year and your income and you qualify, you're able to put up to $6,000 into the Roth IRA. And you put in that, let's say you put in that $6,000, you do not get a benefit today. No tax deduction, no benefit. But let's say that $6,000 grows and it becomes 500 grand and you go to retire. When you take that $5,000 out, you do not pay a single cent of tax on that money. So the traditional IRA, that 500 grand, you have to pay income taxes when you take it out. So you really only get like $300,000, depending upon your income tax bracket, versus 500 grand in the Roth IRA, you get 500 grand to spend. So that's why most people choose the Roth IRA. Huge, huge, huge tool for you and for your kids if you have them. So here's just a chart that explains the difference between the Roth IRA. The income limits vary every single year, but basically you as a single person, once you make more than like 150 grand, you don't qualify for the Roth IRA. There's a little tool that we can do called a Backdoor IRA, but that's more reason to contribute to the Roth IRA while you can. And if you've changed jobs or if you have these old 401k plans, you can take them all and you can roll them into one IRA. You don't have to have like accounts at all these places. The more you can consolidate your money, the more you can streamline things, the more you can make things easier for you and more systems that you can put into place, the more it's easier to manage your money. So college education, I don't know if any of you have children or if you're thinking of having kids later on, but just two things to point out. There's the 529 plan. There's no benefit to put that money into the 529 plan. Some states do give you a small tax benefit, a small tax deduction, usually up to $1,500 as a single person or $3,000 as a married couple. But generally, there's no benefit to put the money in. But you can put pretty much up to 100 grand a year into the 529 plan. The benefit is this money, if it's used for higher education, there's no taxes on what you've earned. And there's no age restriction. So if you want to go for a master's or a PhD or college later on, you can put that money in there now. You know, let's say you inherit some money. You can put that money into a 529 plan, and anything that you earn in that account, you don't pay any taxes on those dollars, and you don't pay taxes when you take that money out, as long as you're using it for higher education. The other key account is the Roth IRA. If you have kids or any young person of any age can have a Roth IRA as long as they have earned income. So we have a 7-year-old that does a lot of modeling, and so they're paid for that, so they have a Roth IRA. The Roth IRA can be used tax-free for your first home purchase or tax-free for higher education, or you can leave it in there for your own retirement. Estate planning, you want to make sure that you protect yourself. At a minimum, you want to have a will. Maybe you need a trust, depending upon your situation. If you don't have one, that's where things go into probate and things get really messy. When Prince passed away, I felt like I was on TV almost every single day stressing the importance of having a will, because the majority of people don't, or the importance of having a trust. And now, especially with everything that's going on, it's so imperative to protect yourself and have your things in order. And so one, you want to involve your family and friends. You don't just want to say, oh, everything's set up, it's taken care of. The other thing is looking at your parents and how are things set up, because we constantly have parents that are passing away, and their beneficiaries, their kids, are receiving this money. They're working, they're having busy lives, and now all of a sudden they're struggling to figure out how did mom and dad have things set up, long-term care, putting them in nursing homes, and it can be very overwhelming. And so make sure that you're protecting and setting things up correctly for yourself, as well as checking for the generation above you. When you're looking at insurance, there's 4 main types of insurance. There's health insurance, which is the #1 reason people do not retire early, because it's so expensive. There's life insurance, then there's disability insurance, and there's long-term care insurance. Life insurance, generally the best way is to have this through your employer or to buy a term policy, which is for a set period of time, and taking the rest of the money and investing it. My goal is that you as an individual have more money and have money in your name. I find a lot of people will have so much money wrapped up in insurance and life insurance that doesn't serve you while you're alive. Make sure that you're protecting yourself if something were to happen for your beneficiaries, but make sure that you're investing in yourself. Disability insurance, it's expensive because it's so widely used. Disability insurance gives you up to 65% of your income back to you if something were to happen to you, that you're disabled and not able to work in the capacity that you were used to working. And then there's long-term care insurance. So long-term care insurance is to stay at home or in a nursing home. Later in life, same thing, it's very expensive. Generally, the best time to look at something like that is usually in your 40s or 50s, but it just depends upon your overall situation. You just want to make sure that you've got yourself covered and protected. The more chance that you have for risk, or the more chance that you have for different things to happen. So how do you choose a financial advisor or wealth advisor? Find someone that's independent, basically someone that doesn't represent a certain product or a certain company. You want someone to be able to sit on the same side of the table as you and help you analyze. Like just yesterday, we had someone and they have accumulated 6 different insurance policies over the years. And so they are sending those over to us for us to analyze them. And so find someone that can, and we sure can do that for you if you need help, but find someone that can analyze stuff for you that doesn't represent one company, because you want to make sure that someone's giving you their unbiased opinion. For us, it doesn't matter if we're using X, Y, and Z or ABC company out there, we can do anything. How do advisors get paid? There's generally 3 ways. So one is hourly. Hourly is where someone doesn't have their assets with us. They're just paying me or our advisors here for their time. So we've had it where someone's going through a divorce and we're helping them figure out how they should separate their assets for the divorce. Or someone has assets with a certain company that they want to keep on their own and they play with their investments, but they need a financial plan and they need some guidance with everything else. And so that's where you can do the hourly. The other ways are the 2 main ways. And that's where, in general, no matter where your money is, it costs you about 1 to 3%. And so the one way is you pay every time you buy, you pay every time you sell. That's called brokerage. That's less common. Nowadays, most people are using that third option called advisory. And that's where you pay a flat percentage based upon the account value. It comes out quarterly. So the fee, the percentage for the year comes out quarterly out of your account, and you see that on your statement. More and more people are using that because it's completely transparent. You know, oh, it cost me, $3,000 or $500 or whatever the dollar amount is for the last quarter to have your money invested. You want to find someone that has a financial planning focus, because it's not just the investments. Financial planning, at least for us, is the main focus of it. We have the Live It list, which basically is your bucket list. So not only are we putting, when we're doing financial plans, we're putting in retirement and a house and a cabin and trips and travel and health expenses and cars and things of that nature, but we're also putting the Live It list experiences, which is, the things that you focus on, what really drives you to be happy. And then ask for a resume or a bio on the wealth advisor. Attend seminars like you're doing with this one, and ask questions. There is never, ever, ever a dumb question when it comes to your money. My 5th book came out last year, but the book, and that was it's titled Who Pays? Navigating Love and Money. So it's on dating and relationships and your own relationship with money. But the book prior to that was Questions and Answers. And it was really driven because I did a radio show for 5 years, and people would call in and say, I have a dumb question. And then they would ask their question. There's never, ever, ever a dumb question when it comes to your money. And so ask questions. We have tons, I have podcasts, webinars, we have tons of articles, research, all sorts of information on our website. Feel free to utilize those, ask me questions. We're here to help. There's never a dumb question when it comes to your money. Don't hesitate to ask if you don't know something, because realize most people don't. So to recap, where do you start? Start figuring out, what do you want and what do you need to do? And start first with figuring out, do I have debt? Do I need to get rid of that debt? Figuring out, why should I invest? What should I be investing for? Is it retirement? Is it a house? Is it cars? What are the important things for you? And then look at knowing where your credit is. And so run your credit report. Go to annualcreditreport.com. And then at the same time, you also want to be making sure that you have liquid money. And maybe you're not able to do that right now, but you want to at least put a plan in place so that at some point you're able to get some liquid money and emergency money set aside. Then if you have investments, it's important to look at your asset allocation. Or if you don't have investments, it's looking at what can you be doing and where can you be investing and putting that money. Then saving for retirement, we went through all the different types of accounts that are available to you, and it can be overwhelming, but it's first looking at what are the ones that make sense for you and where should you start. The one thing I forgot to mention is there's the SEP IRA, and that if you are an independent contractor, because we have a lot of athletes that will get 1099 income. And so if you're an independent contractor, you're able to do the SEP IRA. And the SEP IRA, you're able to put up, it's SEP, Self-Employed Pension Plan. You're able to put up to 25% of your net income away, up to $57,000 a year. And that's totally deductible for you. And you have until July 15th to add for last year. So if you are doing your taxes and your CPA is telling you, hey, you're going to need to pay X number of dollars into the government for taxes, ask about a SEP IRA. Say, could I do the SEP IRA? Because the SEP IRA could get you still a deduction for last year. You have until July 15th to contribute that money, and that can help you for last year. So college education, we touched on the 529 plan. You can use that at any age, the benefits of the Roth IRA. And then making sure that you have a will or a trust, the healthcare directive, all those basic documents, just to make sure that yourself is protected, as well as looking at insurance. What insurance do you have, and what insurance are you spending money on, or what are you needing? And then we went over, how do you pick a financial advisor, or how do you find one? So here's our website. We've got tons of resources there. Feel free to reach out. You sure can email me any question. I'm here to help you. I love taking something that can be overwhelming and making it very fun and practical and interesting so that you can get where you want to go and achieve your goals.
Great, thank you, Nicole. That was awesome. Really clear and a lot of very valuable information in there. I have plenty of questions. I encourage everybody to shoot their questions as well, so we can ask you. But I guess I wanted to start first with sort of we have quite a few athletes that are still in college, and I wanted to ask you, when you as a parent, you have kids, like when would you have your kids start thinking about their own finances, when to start learning about having a budget, and leading into that college life, you know, how independent would you want them to be? So basically, where do you start?
Yep. You start as soon as possible. You know, I mentioned my kids are 10 and 11, and my kids have a green light card, which is basically they get an allowance and they put money in. They have savings for their first car. They have savings for their college. They have savings for their first house. Now, I am a wealth advisor, so I probably talk too much to my kids about money. But if you're in college, that's so important. We have on our website, I encourage you to look at it. It's the time value of money chart. And it shows if you start investing when you're in your 20s versus if you wait until you're out of college, the difference of how easy it is to make you a millionaire the younger you start, because it's the power of time. And so you want to contribute as much as you possibly can at a young age. And so if you are in college and you work during the summer and you make $1,000, put $1,000 in your Roth IRA. And maybe you can't put $1,000 in, but put 500, put something. The biggest thing is that you start, because I'm just like you. If I have money, I spend it. And so Roth IRAs, you can set that up that you're doing a certain dollar amount every single month. And so if you are working while you're going to school and while you're playing your sport, you can set up that you're doing $50 a month or $25 a week or whatever, so that you're contributing to something. And then as you're going along, or as you're making more money, or if you work in the summer, you're able to do a lump sum contribution. And the biggest thing is when you're in college is to not get into that trap of credit card debt, or not get into that trap of overspending. That's where the budget is so imperative, because I do see a lot of people that will take out student loans and will use some of that student loan money for their personal expenses, not necessarily straight school expenses, and it becomes a snowball effect. And then you get out of school and you are just struggling, and you want to be setting yourself up for the greatest amount of success as possible. So the goal being how can you get out of school with the least amount of debt, with great credit and a budget, and having really a good, strong foundation, and that discipline. I mean, being an athlete, I get it. So many times people are like, how are you up so early? I'm like, I was at the ice rink at 5 in the morning every single day, ice skating. And that, you, as an athlete, you have amazing discipline. Take that same discipline and bring that to your money, because it's so powerful. It's so powerful when you get control over your spending, your saving, and your investing.
Great. So on that topic, starting early, you talk about different ways of saving. And so I'm curious about what your priority would be for someone who has limited means. What would you start with? Is it paying off debt and then starting to save for your rainy day, or saving for your rainy day versus your retirement? What would be your priority for someone who has limited saving possibilities?
Yep, it's paying off any high interest debt. So if you have a credit card that's charging you 21% interest, you can't get ahead. And so you really need to cut that down and get that gone. And hopefully you've got a point that, you can set a time frame where you're like, okay, here's the amount of debt that I have. If I get on a really strict plan and pay that off and not accumulate more debt, that debt could be gone in 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whatever. So that at that point, then you can say, okay, I'm going to start saving for my Roth IRA. And so the biggest thing is, especially with athletes, is you want to contribute to the Roth IRA while you can, because eventually what's going to happen generally is you're going to all of a sudden have higher income, and you're going to make too much, and you're not going to be able to contribute to the Roth. And so it's kind of this game of, okay, get the debt gone as soon as possible. If you have debt that's 0% interest, or like a student loan that's charging you really low interest, do your Roth IRA. But it's that credit card debt of 17% or these high interest things that you've got to get rid of first.
Got it. What age would you recommend to start looking at estate planning for athletes and younger adults?
It depends on the situation. I mean, there's some circumstances where, if someone has an assets from an inheritance, or as an athlete, generally once they are about to sign their first contract, that's where you want to have your ducks in a row, and you want to have your estate in place. And it's because you want to look at, what if, we just had a former Vikings player die in a car accident. It's like, you never know. So once you have something, a contract, assets, a house, things of that nature, that's when, or kids, or a wife, or a husband, someone that's dependent upon you, that's where you want to make sure that you have a will or a trust and those things protected.
Great. And you mentioned, how to select a wealth advisor. And often I think people and athletes think about wealth advisor for those who have more means, more money. Mm-hmm. What do you think about having a wealth advisor for someone who is an athlete in college and starting that process pretty early?
Right. That's my favorite. That is my favorite work, really. It's because you've got time, and because you can set yourself and position yourself up psychologically, emotionally, in the right frame of mind, so that when you are gaining that contract, or when your career as an athlete all of a sudden takes off, you already know what a Roth is. You already know what a SEP is. You know that you want to set up a foundation, or you don't want to set up a foundation. You've thought about some of these things. Don't necessarily have to have them in place, but at least you've had some of these conversations. And so that's really my favorite, is helping people when they're young and getting them in the beginning, because in college, you've got time on your hands to be able to position yourself to have this amazing, great future. And so, I'm astounded. One of my favorite athletes, he's in college, and it'll be a Saturday night, and he'll text me and he's like, hey, do you have some time? And so I talked to him on a Saturday night. My kids, are sleeping, and he's like, I just got to make sure, like, I understand the SEP IRA right. And once, he's in college. He hasn't, he's just finishing college, hasn't signed his contract yet. And it's a Saturday night and he's talking to me about money. It puts you in the right frame of mind, and it sets that foundation so that when you do get all of the contracts and the things that you want later on, and implement the goals and the plan that you have, that your financial plan is in place already and you can implement that. The younger you start, the easier it is. I've never met someone that's in their 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I've never met someone that says, oh, I wish I would have met you later. And biggest, the thing I also say is, okay, a lot of times people think like, oh, I need to have a lot of money before I see a wealth advisor. But really, how are you going to get a lot of money if you don't necessarily have a wealth advisor and have a plan to be smart with it?
Right. So it's a lot of education, it seems, in the early years, and it doesn't matter whether you're making a lot of money yet, because you're really working with the wealth advisor and educating yourself about finances, and just setting yourself in with the right basics,
Yes.
the right plan, so that either you end college and you get a contract and you can use that, or you go into your next job and you understand what to do and how to invest your money. You understand how to read your first paycheck. So I find that really, really valuable. One thing that we haven't touched on at all, but I think you have a great expertise in, is as a couple, for those who are now, having to deal with finances as a couple versus individually. Do you have like specific advice for couples on how to manage their finances and do a teamwork, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always recommend having a money date. And in my book, Who Pays, chapter 9, it's all questions. And so these are some, and maybe your first money date needs to be, outside in the public if you struggle talking about money. But the whole in chapter 9 is all questions. And so you can start with going through those questions if you're struggling having these conversations. But I usually find that one person's a saver and one person's the spender. And I usually find there's one person that's more focused on the investing, the 401ks, the retirement, and the other person's more focused on the day-to-day managing the money. And the important thing is you need to be on the same page. And so these questions can be, what's your favorite money memory? If you won $1 million, what would you do with it? If you had $10 million in your account, where would you spend it? And so it's asking and answering some of these questions so that you see, one, you have time to think about what are your feelings of money yourself, but two, where is your significant other coming from, and where are you on the same page, and where are you not on the same page, and the strengths and the skills and the abilities of each one of you, so that you can utilize those to make sure that you're on the same page and achieving your goals together.
Fantastic. I think that's great advice. And is there a time frame when you would get those conversations started? I mean, I think it really depends on how the couples are, but I'm guessing, starting it as early as possible in your relationship.
Absolutely.
When you think it's serious, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, not if you're dating, it's not necessarily on the first date, but
Right.
but generally, 6 to 12 months in, definitely before you're married, because that's the thing I find. Many people, I've helped someone through the divorce process, and then 6 months later they come to me and they're like, here's my new guy, or here's my new gal. And they don't even know what that other person's credit score is or their financial situation. So definitely before you get married, you want to make sure you want to understand what you're getting into, and because your credit follows your social security number. But when you get married to someone and you get a joint utility bill together or a joint debt together, their social security number is their credit and yours is yours, but you commingle those together, their credit's going to affect yours. And so you need to make sure that you're on the same page in relation to money and understand what you're getting into. So
Absolutely. Great advice. Well, I'm checking in, see if anybody else has additional questions for you this morning. But this was extremely helpful, really valuable information. Just wanted to repeat that Nicole is available for you guys if you have questions. I will be sharing her information as well. Her website is here on the screen, prosperwell.com. You mentioned there are a lot of resources on your website.
Yes.
So we invite you guys to go and check it out. A lot of financial literacy is about educating yourself and understanding about money. So always good to know more about that. And Nicole, thank you so very much for joining us this morning and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.